Mission ready. Thank you. Welcome to today's meeting. This is a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording, providing commentary on proceedings. Please note, this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed, and once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking.
Good morning. Welcome to this licensing subcommittee on Thursday the 20th of September. We are here today to consider premises licence application by Piston Distillery. Could I invite you to elect a chair, please?
As Charlotte's already said, welcome to this meeting, and I don't want to be a parrot. I'd like to start the meeting by having a brief round of introductions, but also asking if anybody wants to take more than the time of 10 minutes pace in the original piece. So I'll start. I'm Councillor Robin Norfolk. I'm a representative for St John's Ward in the city.
I'm Councillor Sue Smith. I'm Councillor for the Bedwardine Ward in the city.
I'm Councillor Pat Agar and I represent.
Thank you, Chair. Graham Rowbury, Licensing Officer, Regulatory Services on behalf of the Council.
I'm Charlotte Pidgeon. I'm the legal advisor today.
My name is Nick Weatherall. I'm the founder and owner of Piston Distillery Limited.
My name is Duncan Craig and I'm here to represent the applicant.
Presentations to this subcommittee.
Grace.
Hi, my name is Grace. I am Grace Stringer and I'm the General Manager.
Presentations to the subcommittee are not given under oath. However, I should like to remind all parties that the highest standards are expected, and any deviation from these high standards could possibly influence any decision from this subcommittee. I'd like to hear from the licensing officer first.
Please.
Do any of the members have any interest in these proceedings?
None.
Thank you. Over to you, Graham.
Thank you, Chair. The committee is asked to consider and determine an application for the grant of a premises licence to Piston Distillery Limited for premises at Danks 2, Diglis Basin, Worcester. The application made in July this year seeks to licence the sale of alcohol at the premises as part of the applicant's distillery and gin school business. The previous application was withdrawn by the applicant when they were made aware that the public notice advertising the application had not been displayed clearly. The current application is complete, has been advertised in the press and at the premises as required by the Licensing Act, and distributed to all authorities. During consultation, the application was amended by the applicant to reduce the proposed licensing hours. This was done following a meeting with residents. The revised hours are in. During consultation, 26 representations were made by members of the public. That's the report. 9 representations object to the grant of the licence in the form applied for. Among the reasons given are that the granting of the licence would increase noise nuisance and social behaviour in the area, that the site is inappropriate due to its proximity to a body of water, and that the proposed hours are inconsistent with planning approval. 17 representations were in favour of the grant of the licence, mainly citing its potential to regenerate and improve the Diglis Basin area. No objections were made by responsible authorities. The committee is therefore asked to consider and determine the application having regard to statutory guidance on the Licensing Act, Council Statement of Licensing Policy, representations made during consultation and evidence presented here today. Each application must be considered on its own merits.
Thank you, Graham. The next phase is to any questions from the members or from the parties present. Pat?
Not to our officer, no, thank you.
Okay. Any from Clinton Red? Over to the applicant and your representative to speak in support of the application.
Chair, thank you. I'll be mindful of the 10 minutes that I've got. This is an application for the grant of a premises licence, originally with a terminal hour of 2,300 hours on a Saturday and less than that in the rest of the week. That's been scaled back now to 5:30 on a Sunday, 9:30 Monday to Thursday, forgive me, Monday to Friday, and on a Saturday, 2,200 hours. That is in accordance with the planning restrictions, and whilst planning and licensing are entirely separate regimes, consistency of conditions is encouraged in the Section 182 guidance under paragraph 9.45, and so my client has ensured that the closing times are in accordance with both permissions should this be granted. You can see at page 21 in the agenda pack the operating schedule, I should say. That is the steps that the applicant is proposing in order to promote the licensing objectives that would be adapted as conditions on the licence. I won't read them verbatim, but they deal with matters such as personal licence holders being on site, regular staff training, Challenge 25, closed circuit television, capacity for the event, and matters that relate to public nuisance regarding DJs, to deliveries and restrictions in respect of music, and of course Challenge 25 as well. So those are all, and the guidance at 1.16 does require conditions are appropriate for the venue, they are proportionate and promote the licensing objective, and they are enforceable and capable of being met. And I would say it's worth, in my professional opinion, all those conditions are appropriate for a venue such as these. You'll have seen also in the, and I didn't repeat it here, but obviously you'll have questions potentially about what my client intends to do with this, and obviously at page 8 in the agenda pack is a description that's been provided of what my client is seeking to do, and principally that's going to be a gin school, and obviously one of the reasons that they've applied for a licence in relation to that is, I guess it's like a hairdresser, so if somebody goes to a hairdresser's and gets a glass of champagne, if it's included in the price of the haircut, then that's technically a sale of alcohol. So my client is endeavouring to comply with their lawful obligations in respect of these premises, but also they are looking to put occasional events on, hence why the application also reflects that. They have been running temporary events, a number of temporary events at the premises whilst they've been awaiting this hearing, and certainly important to point out that no representations have been made in respect of this application by any responsible authority, and in particular environmental health. At 9.12 in the guidance, it's clear that responsible authorities are seen to be the experts in their particular field. That doesn't mean that their views are overwhelming. Of course, anybody's entitled to make objections to any application, but you are entitled to form the view that your environmental health have looked at this application, do not consider that as it stands, it will undermine the licensing objectives if it's granted in its current form. And I would say that, that the hours in relative terms to other premises in the area and other premises in the city are modest, certainly with a 10 o'clock terminal hour for licensable activities. I would say in respect of that, that my client is mindful that they are in an area of town. They need to be considerate for the people who are around them. There's certainly nothing that I've seen to suggest that isn't the case. I'll turn now, if I may, I'm just conscious of time, to the objections, and I'm just going to deal with the sort of the overall points that have been raised. First of all, there's been a suggestion around regulated entertainment, and I'm particularly referring for page 44 in the agenda pack, suggests that you cannot have music without the presence of a premises license that authorises the sale of alcohol. It makes reference to the Live Music Act. That's actually incorrect. By virtue of, you're legally advised here today, under Schedule 1 of the Licensing Act, under paragraph 7, that background music is permitted in any event, and under paragraph 12b, live music is permitted within any workplace up to 11 o'clock at night, and obviously the premises is be open beyond 10 o'clock. And so the notion that these premises without a premises license couldn't put live music on is as wrong as a matter of law. And I felt compelled to point that out. And actually, it's a little-known quirk in the Section 182 guidance under paragraph 16.30, that if you have a DJ in there that's mixing music, that is deemed to be live music. And accordingly, in the absence of any license, people can have a DJ mixing records. So, suggestion at page 44 that an alcohol license is a backdoor way of getting live and recording music, certainly live music, is incorrect and misconceived. I will then deal with the other strands of the objections. There's a number of them. I'll deal with them as quickly as I can. The location is not appropriate. Well, first of all, it's not in the cumulative impact area. Secondly, there are other premises that are licensed locally, and obviously public safety is something that would engage environmental health, and they haven't made any representations upon the application. Matters in relation to disturbance, well, I would say the hours that have been applied for are modest, relatively speaking. My client's fitness and propriety has been called into question. I think that's grossly unfair and wrong, and there's no basis for that whatsoever. There's reference been made in the representations to need. It's not a consideration. Be well aware. There's also reference to the fact that the premises doesn't have aircon. You can see in the supporting documents that have been provided, there are aircon units my client has invested in. They've also invested in noise attenuation panels, and again, you'll have seen those in the supporting documents. There's reference to crime, or there's no specific evidence at all to support the notion that this application will increase crime. That is a generic fear or speculation that's been raised in general terms, nothing actually linking it to this particular application. Questions have been raised about the advertising of the application. Well, your licensing authority acting as in administrative capacity has deemed the application to be valid, so they aren't effectively submitted today. There's also, this confused me slightly, there's been reference to indoors and outdoors. That isn't correct, actually, because I had to scratch my head. If you look at page 19, there's reference to alcohol on the application being either indoors or outdoors. I've never seen indoor or outdoors on any application relating to the sale of alcohol. You get it with regulated entertainment. On page 19, it's simply on the premises, off the premises, or both. And the box for both has been ticked because clients want to be able to, people to be able to take gin away that they purchased on the premises. So I don't know where people have got the indoors and outdoors issue where they've raised that from. There are also concerns that have been raised about outside and my clients using outside. My clients do not have a right to use outside. It is not part of their lease, not part of their licensable area. They will not be using outside at all. And obviously, they've also will ensure that all the windows and doors are closed as appropriate. You will also have seen, conscious of the time, I've probably got another couple of minutes. You will also have seen noise survey that's been produced. The gentleman that produced it, Tony, sits behind me. He can answer any questions you've got, but obviously that specifically addresses any concerns that residents may have about these premises producing noise that would constitute a nuisance, be that statutory or public. And so that is the application. This was a premises that was empty previously. Clients have come in. They are very committed to the city. You can see from the application that they were originally based in Worcester. Their actual distillery, their main distillery, is in Cheltenham. It will remain there. By the way, distilleries are fairly noisy places. I don't expect the residents would want a full-on distillery at this particular premises. My clients are hugely committed to this city. I've been to the site. I think it's fantastic what they've done there. I think it looks great. They want to have a relationship with the people who live around them. And I will finish by saying, extremely unusual, the grant application, get letters, support, and certainly this number of letters in support. More people written in to support this application. That doesn't mean suggesting that those people who are objecting don't have a voice. It's right that they do. I also invite you to consider those emails that have supported the application, people who live locally. That is the presentation. I think I've just about stuck to my 10 minutes. Thank you, Chair. And obviously we're here to answer any questions you've got.
Thank you for that. I'll open the, I'll ask members if they've got any questions. Pat?
Thank you for the clarity of what you said. I didn't quite catch what you said about distilling on site. Is there any distilling on site?
Mini distilling.
So the whole idea of the gin school is that everybody that attends that class distills their own bottle of gin. So the idea of it being a micro distillery is that they're tiny little stills that people use. And it's the same process, so yes.
On that photograph there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah. I'm concerned about the premises being very close to water, and some of the customers might have had a few drinks. What precautions are you taking regarding the safety of your customers close to the water?
Everybody that attends the gin schools where they're likely to have a drink, we regulate the amount of drinks that people can have. So we don't expect people to be leaving in a state of intoxication that would lead to them falling in the water. There's obviously a lot of people around. There's, life rings on the side of the building, which are provided by Aquavista, who manage the basin. It's, to be honest, it's not something that we feel is a major risk. Everybody's aware of where they are. An awful lot of licensed premises around our country and every country in the world that are next to water. And I think a lot of people enjoy that proximity of water. So aware of it to a level that protects us from any risk.
I think the other point is that the hours that are being applied for, obviously, the later that a licensed premise goes on, the more likely it would be that those issues that you've raised would occur. And obviously now it's 10 o'clock is the terminal hour. That would.
Thank you both. Any questions from witnesses?
You know, I mean, as cocktail shakers. You know, I mean, you're taking alcohol from your premises, pure alcohol from your premises in Cheltenham, bringing them here to Worcester, entertaining people with the botanicals that are led with it. So, you know, I mean, talked about the gin school. So your planning permission, and I know that this is about licensing, I completely understand that, but it was for a distillery, small batch, I think it said, you said micro. That is not specified as in how big the batch is. So I think that today all I've heard is about the gin school. There is no distillery. You were given planning permission for a distillery, there isn't one. You distill gin into a glass at an event. The question is, there's no, you don't have a distillery on site.
I would
Okay.
agree, that isn't a question, that's just a statement. So, thank you. No other questions?
Not on this particular point.
Charlotte?
Thank you. I was just wondering, just following up from Councillor Smith's question, you have CCTV and lighting on the external areas of the building.
The external lighting would require an additional planning application, so no. Aquavista, I'll come on to that. Aquavista have lighting in the basin and CCTV that they monitor. It is our intention to install CCTV, but I need to do that in conjunction with Aquavista so that we make sure that there's no dark spots. And I don't know whether you've ever worked with them or tried to. It can take some time. That is the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We have representation. I've not got my mic. We have representation, so over to the public speaker.
Batch? Okay, great, thank you. Never having done anything like this before in my life, I mean, I'm sorry if I don't ask the questions in the correct way, but I'm speaking on behalf of the few against the many. The hours that were discussed, I believe that it's 5 o'clock, 11 till 5 and not 11 till 5:30, which was in planning. Because there are shop hours, like 6 hours on a Sunday and bank holidays appropriately. That's what the council told us, that it was 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock on a. So, and my major concern, and a lot of people's major concern, we've obviously heard about the health and safety from the water, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But the gin school, the application was for 24 and events. The folks at Pistons have been very open and in the press that they want to be able to have this as an event space. That is my biggest concern, that up somewhere between 75 and 150 people are the numbers that have been, that I think is in the packet, which I only got today. And that is my concern, that you've got a mass event with music, whether it's a DJ, whether it's live, whether it's gin and jazz, that is unregulated. And then at 10 o'clock, when it all closes, where do all those people go? We're just about to go into summertime, the end of summertime, and say it's going to be dark at night. And literally outside the space that we're talking about here, there was a death of a young man 10 years ago. We've already had another death not very far from that along the side near the sluice on the canal. Both of these related to alcohol. And so I think a gin school in principle for 24 people, I really can't object to that. But when we get to these marketing events and big events, those are the things that worry me about this whole process. So we don't have any manufacturing. We don't have regulated the amount of people that go in there. And yes, it will be finished at 10 o'clock, but they could also serve alcohol from 9 o'clock in the morning. So whether it gets bad after 10 o'clock, yes, it can do. My mum always used to say to me that, nothing good happens after midnight. But if you can start drinking at 9 o'clock here. The events that they want to do, they're unregulated here, up to, I don't know, 75 or 150. But planning was given for a gin school for 24 people. And the shop is, in Disney terms, I would call it a merchandising opportunity for them to sell and promote their products. So that's all I've got to say on the subject. I think I've got everything here. Time, capacity, heard my opinion on the gin school, and the outside space is a really big concern. If they've had a couple of events, if the weather is warmer, people migrate outside. I know that the applicant wants to keep everybody in, but it's warm in there. I was there at the public meeting. It was not well advertised. Talked about air conditioning. If you've got 24 people in there, if you've got 2 air conditioning units, they're not fit for purpose. And I received the noise facts last night. I read those. We haven't had an event with a DJ or major live music for I don't know how many people, so we don't know how loud it's going to be. What I could see, I'm not a sound engineer, I don't pretend to be, but the infrastructure that's been put in place is more for acoustics rather than for damping sound. So that's all I've got to say. Covered. So.
Thank you. I'll open for questions from members first. So, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you for coming along and letting us know what your views are. We did have concerns about safety around the water. You're aware, of course, that should there be any, that the fire would actually deal with them. They're the ones with the boats. And the other thing is, you're talking about no regulation of things, and music is regulated, but it's part of the application for alcohol, so they're allowed to play it at the same time as alcohol is being served. You know that. That's okay. Thank you. So it is actually regulated. Yeah, sorry.
Of alcohol comes with a music license, whether that is live music or piped music. I think that is something that came in after COVID. So I wasn't made aware of that. What I mean by unregulated events is the applicant has very publicly said that I can hire the space for my birthday. So I can't say how loud the music's going to be. I can't, or it cannot be regulated how loud the music is going to be and if it is going to cause a public nuisance. Yep.
So you know that, don't you? So it is regulated.
Well, I read the report, looked at that yes, it is, but how do we know in the future that the noise levels associated with this event space will not exceed that? And if we have a large event with more than 24 people at it, that they've already got their license, I understand it then becomes a civil matter, quite difficult to actually, there's no one as a resident for me to complain to apart from the environmental health, and then I have to prove it to make sure before it happens. So my objection here is the difference between 24 people and 150.
I think Mr. Rowbury can confirm that you can complain to regulatory services. They do have equipment to monitor noise levels, should that be necessary. And we have to assume they're going to do their job properly. We can't not assume. Is that yeah?
Thank you, Pat. Sue? Do the applicant have any questions? Thank you. We have no councillors from the area present. Do you have anything further to from the applicant's perspective?
Two things, Chair. I guess just to respond to one or two of the points that have been raised. Firstly, I'm told that the deaths that occurred, one was not outside the premises, the other was, as I understand it, suicide by gas. I mean, that needs to be addressed. The client doesn't accept that the gin school for 26 people as part of the planning, and I didn't see it in any of the planning papers. Look, planning and licensing are different regimes. You're obviously well aware of that. I don't need to stress that point. And yes, you are correct. There are absolutely mechanisms in place. The licence can be reviewed and regulated intent can be disallowed by way of section 177A. The Licensing Act, there can be noise abatement notices served by way of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. And so there are mechanisms in place, and I would just say that my client has taken positive steps in respect of this building, taken the unusual step of getting a noise report for premises such as these that isn't a nightclub, for example. And they have taken positive steps in order to ensure that there isn't any. They don't want to upset anybody, and they understand that if they are doing that and they're not complying with the conditions on the licence, then business that they are seeking to have would be in jeopardy and would be under threat. And so I would just please invite you accordingly to grant the application as it stands in what is a reduced form, and in a form that your responsible authorities, and particularly environmental health, presently. Thank you.
Thank you. And any further representation from you? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Is that up? Bear with me. I'll just seek some advice. Is that at my discretion? Consent from you. If you care to.
Or she can have mine. There you go. There you go.
I will, of course.
No, all I wanted to say, earlier on you were saying side space, etc., and you didn't know where that was. It's come from, because here on page number, licensable activities, activity, the days from and to. This is actually the licensing application, so it's on the second page. And the final column, it says indoors stroke outdoors, and for things, sale of alcohol on all these different days, and it says both. So that's where that information came from. It's actually in the licensing application.
Licensing application, that is the, well, it is that has been produced by the council. I think it constitutes a draft maybe wrong, it looks like a draft license. The application itself that my client submitted, that they have control over, is at page 19 in the agenda pack, and, which deals with section J within the application, and it has the supply of alcohol, and you can see on the top right, it says, will the supply of alcohol be for consumption? They've ticked on, off, both, and they've ticked both there. They put an X next to both. There is no provision, as I've ever seen in any licensing grant application form, to say whether the sale of alcohol will be indoors or outdoors. If you turn back to page 18, you can see there under, for example, late night refreshment, you have indoors, outdoors, or both. And again, if you go back another page and look at page 17, again, because it's regulated entertainment, it's indoors or outdoors or both. So the sale of alcohol, there's no provision within the application form. That is something that the council produced, which I am saying, in my view, is wrong from a licensing act point of view. My mistakes is administrative error. My client has not had any involvement.
May I? I think that is an understanding of the law. And when you say both, you're talking about off-license sales. Yes. Yes. To a layperson, which we are, we would see that as inside and outside, so on premises and off. And so there's nothing here that would stop somebody buying a bottle of gin and drinking it on the park bench outside where the death happened. And also the death that I'm referring to actually happened at the sluice. It wasn't anybody that gassed them. It was another young person selling it. So.
I completely take your point about what it says on there, and anybody would interpret it that way. Not criticising you for that. The only point I would make is that consumption is not a licensable activity. What has been said about the park bench would any premises licence that has off sales.
I mean, you're a lawyer and I'm a marketeer. You know what I mean? That's the difference. But what I'm saying is you can understand how, as lay people, we get very emotional about the place that we live in.
I think this gentleman has made a representation in support of the application.
If you could.
So what button do I press? It's the red one.
Would you mind just introducing yourself?
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I've lived in Diglis now for 12 years. This particular building has been empty for all of those 12 years. The area now is improving, it's becoming vibrant. I think the lady in question is referring to the person who passed away, actually fell in the canal in Sidbury, and he actually ended up in the basin in the marina. The vast majority of the people that live in Diglis are in favour of this. It improves the area. And that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. I don't want to get in a prolonged debate about the virtues or otherwise of what the distillery will bring to the Diglis Basin, but I'll give you an opportunity to comment, and I'll give you an opportunity to comment. I would like to, at some point, come to a point where we can retire and make a decision.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. So I would just invite you to recall that there's a presumption in favour of granting, unless we think it's going to harm any of the 4 licensing objectives. As you're all aware, the licensing and you can only consider representatives relate to and promote those licensing objectives. You must consider our own statement of licensing policy and the guidance, and then you must consider the application, all the relevant recommendations that you've heard today. You must now either grant it as requested, modify conditions, be that altering or adding conditions, or reject it in whole or in part. And I would stress that you are not entitled, you not modify or add conditions or reject in whole or in part merely because it is desirable to do so. It should be appropriate and necessary in the promotion of the licensing objective.
Do you have anything further to add, Ben? Thank you. Right, I'd like to thank you all for your time, your patience. If you wouldn't mind giving us some time to retire from the room and giving us some time to make our deliberations. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. In our deliberations, we have been limited by the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, the protection of children from harm. We have no evidence from the police about the prevention of crime and disorder. Our representations from the fire authority, there is no objection from the fire authority. The prevention of public nuisance, all the evidence that we've heard to date doesn't show that we can prevent a public nuisance, or there is a public nuisance to prevent, although residents will have recourse to regulatory services in the event of a complaint about the level of noise. Obviously, I think the protection of children from harm has been covered in the licensing application. We are minded, or we will grant the license. There are no considerations to the license other than, but we do have some concerns. The license hours, as indicated, which are 9 a.m. till 2200 on Saturday, 9:30 Monday to Friday, and 17:30 on a Sunday. As far as I can see, or as far as we can see, the planning permission are until 5 o'clock on a Sunday. So you may get enforcement notice planning if you open up after 5 p.m. The licensing hours that we're granting do not cover the Christmas and the Christmas period, and I noticed in the application you said that you may like to open longer. And similarly, the shop opening hours would also fall outside of the planning permission provided. I would urge you to talk to planning, variation you can make on your planning. And finally, external CCTV. Whilst we can't put a consideration on, I urge you to address that as urgently as possible with Aquavitae. I think that's the right name. Aquavista, not Aquavitae, which is obviously your trade. Right, I think that draws a conclusion to this morning's session, and I'd like to thank you all, as again, for your patience.